Grab yourself a beverage and let's get cracking. That's right, it's the Trident realm of Neritica. Trident realm singular, that is one realm, Neritica, not realms. Okay, let's get started. So Trident Realm is a faction that was essentially a finesse faction, and that really doesn't change in 3rd edition. What that means is you've got to use your units very intelligently to gain advantages because they generally have lower defense, less attacks, that sort of thing, and so you have to play smart in order to get the most out of them. You got to look for flanks, you got to take advantage of terrain and your ensnare special rule in order to play them as intelligently and effectively as possible. So let's start off with a new unit for them. This is the River Guard Tree Leapers. These guys are a variant of the River Guards, which are still in the list. So this is a more combat-focused unit. Decent speed at speed 7. Also Fly and Nimble is also fantastic. And then Crushing Strength 1 makes it very clear what these guys are intended to do. So you can use your existing models for these guys if you're intending to use them in a combat role exclusively. So the River Guard are still going to have their ranged options, but these are more of a focused unit that is only looking to get into combat. The top profile with the troop, I think, is a fantastic deal at 110 as well. So people might like them as chaff as a good example, or even a great distraction unit, something to go get objectives, that sort of thing. I think it fits well into the list. Let's look at the Nyad Heart Piercers. This is a unit that probably didn't see that much tabletop action in 2nd edition, so some very subtle tweaks were made to them to make them more appealing. Now they've swapped Pathfinder out for Steady Aim, and they've dropped their attacks a little bit to compensate for that, because I think when you're hitting on 4+, throwing out attacks and then not having any kind of negative modifier for movement, that makes them an extremely good and mobile unit to go get objectives and that sort of thing. And with the new objectives in the game, things like bluff counters and expanded loot tokens, that's going to be a very valuable unit to have. Even though they're irregular, I think that they're still going to complement the finesse of the army, because you can throw out some damage with ranged attacks and then be able to supplement that with your combat as it gets closer. So I like the changes, pretty significant if you consider the movement penalty is no longer a thing and attacks are negligible at that point. Next, let's look at the Gigas. The large infantry, large cavalry, monstrous infantry, all that kind of stuff is a very competitive slot in Trident Realm. So now with the new River Guard Dam Busters, you've got some very distinct options between the Worm Riders, the Gigas, and the Dam Busters that all play very differently. So the Gigas saw some significant changes that make them more appealing than what they were in 2nd edition. So they're not nearly as offensive with the lower attacks, but they've got a bump in their speed. Now they have Nimble and Vicious as well. So Nimble is the big thing here that I see. Big shield on defense 5 now instead of it being 4. That's pretty disgusting, but I like crabs. So lots of good to get out of them. In my opinion, the Nimble is such a big deal, because when you start to consider the different units that have shambling and you want your surge tactics as well as enthrall, which I'm going to go over next, there's a lot of opportunity here to open up angles that you just didn't have before. So really interesting complement, you know, to Worm Riders and the Dam Busters as well. So I think it has a really nice place. And again, we're just trying to expand on the available builds that you can do, especially with units like this. Every single one in the slot is going to do a different thing, and really you're going to have a very significant choice in your hands on what you want to take. We've seen a number of war engines that all got a bump to 2 attacks. Well, let's look at the Leviathan's Bane, because this guy's got some really nice stuff to it. It still has the 2 attacks, but this one has a range attack 4 as opposed to 5, which is a really big deal. Also, the piercing 3 that's on there, reload does limit it a little bit because you can't pivot and see different angles quite as easily. But the nifty thing here is the harpoon ability that it has. So every point of damage that you do to the unit, once you've actually hit it, you're able to immediately cast the enthrall spell on it and pull them towards you, which is extremely fluffy and really cool. I also think it's a great tactical option for the rest of the army, where, again, like we talked about with the Nimble and the Gigas, things like shambling and surge, just being able to push and pull units with wind blast and surge and shambling, it's just tons of different angles, and it really complements that whole finesse feel that the army is supposed to have in the first place. So really nice tool in the toolkit, if you ask me. Last, let's look at the Thule Aqua Mage. This is a variant on the Thule Mythician, and the first thing you might say to yourself is that, why do you have 2 different Thules as an option? And something that's important to note is that in 3rd edition, the spells that are available to a spellcaster are in their profile. So that's the only options that they have. They're going to have very distinct roles as a Mythic and an Aquamage. The Aquamage is particularly good at pairing up with your waterbound units, such as Water Elementals, who got a significant boost with Strider. Certain things in the Aquamage's repertoire here are going to be making it a little bit more challenging. Do you want that Icy Breath from modifier to movement? or do you want to swap that out for surge and really benefit the water elementals that you're going along with them, as well as the other waterbound units. And then you've also got the option of looking at that wild charge upgrade, which is pretty fantastic. So you start to look at some really quick units availability. It doesn't say that that ore is unique to the waterbound units as well. So lots of different options. Now, if you consider the Mythican as another option, then maybe you want to see your Banechan options and things like that. So slightly different profiles for different units, and each one is going to give you a distinct advantage in what you want to do. Again, the message is very clear. Every separate unit does a different thing and gives you multiple build options. So that's it for the Trident Realm in 3rd edition. There will probably be additional previews. We're spreading out the love to all the different things. So if you don't see a unit that you wanted to see on here, it's very likely that you'll see it somewhere else. And I'm going to try to keep all these as positive as possible, because heaven forbid we go over anything that gets any kind of a negative tweak to it, because, you know, every army has to be the best and the most amazing in 3rd edition. And that's true. They are all amazing and the best. So this is the best for the Trident Realm, and I'll see you next Tuesday with the next preview. Probably elves. We'll see you then.